Hey, what's up everybody? It's Saturday, October 15th. My name is Reagan. Welcome back to my channel. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe. I'm covering ecology, the world, politics, general news, and our general trajectory towards collapse. Indeed, it is a very sensitive subject, and only the brave, mighty, and few can seem to handle it. Otherwise, you can go subscribe to like The Wizard Liz or dudebro.com.
And I don't find this funny anymore.
It never was supposed to be. Why isn't it possible?
I'm going to go ahead and record my screen. Going to cover 3 articles today that are all somewhat interconnected, but give a pretty good picture of what the White House is planning to do and where we're headed. Again, I have a responding to comments video coming soon. I do that around the 17th or 18th every month. And yeah, the leaves are changing. Let's go ahead and get into it. First up, from Newsweek, of all places, I did not expect them to post something like this. Again, they're just now catching up to climate crisis and the severity of it, I suppose.
I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? Go back to ripping off mob dealers? No. You complete me.
You're garbage. You kills for money.
Don't talk like one of them. You're not. Even if you'd like to be.
But the article headline, this just came out 3 days ago. Why is anyone not paying attention to this? I don't know. When will the world as we know it end from climate change?
What?
And again, I'm going to preface, I'm going to paraphrase some of these articles, so, just try to read along. The climate crisis is already here. Extreme weather has become more common across the globe, blah, blah, blah. If nothing is done to curb gas emissions, then temperatures are likely to rise by 2.1 to 3.5 degrees compared to pre-industrial levels by the end of the century. Earth has not been this hot for over 3 million years. These temperatures are not unprecedented. It has happened before in Earth's history, but the difference now is this at which global temperatures are rising, and the role humans have in the process. Humans are causing this and causing our globe to warm up faster than any other time in recent geological history. In fact, ever. Because we've never been around. What this article goes on to say is something I knew for many years, and what got me really stoked, and not a good way, is that the Earth's climate system exists in equilibrium. If we give them a small push, they return to their natural state. However, after a critical threshold is crossed, these changes become irreversible and self-sustaining, with devastating effects on animals and plants. These thresholds are called tipping points. Once a tipping point is crossed, quote, positive amplifying feedback loops become more powerful enough to keep driving change in the tipping element until it reaches a totally new state. David McKay, a research consultant at Geoengineering Analytics, a research at Stockholm Resilience Center, told Newsweek. He's been doing the rounds lately. For example, once the Greenland ice sheet loses enough height from ice melt, its top sinks into warmer air levels that drive further melting. This would lock in up to 7 meters of long-term sea level rise, another 3 meters from similar West Antarctic ice, committing future generations to massively reshaped global coastlines and displaced population regions. In permafrost regions, wide frost abrupt thaw would severely disrupt livelihoods and infrastructure in the north and release additional greenhouse gases, amplifying warming by around 5 to 10% in the coming centuries. Try a decade. They've identified 16 tipping points. So basically, this is a reiteration of a paper that Mr. Beckwith also did a video on. I also covered briefly, but here it is on Newsweek. Okay, guys, the alarm bells are ringing. But what can we do to save ourselves? Luckily, the White House has just the plan for us. They are pushing ahead with research to cool Earth by reflecting back sunlight. Oh, the thing that we all dread, cloud seeding. The Office of Science and Technology Policy is coordinating a 5-year research plan to study ways of modifying the amount of sunlight that reaches the Earth in order to temporarily temper the effects of global warming. There are several sunlight technology being considered, including stratospheric aerosol injection, marine cloud brightening, and cirrus cloud thinning. Stratospheric aerosol injection involves spraying an aerosol like sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, and because it has a potential to infect the entire globe, often it gets the most attention. While arguments of moral hazards have handicapped research efforts, the idea is getting more urgent attention in the worsening. And so this is a rather lengthy article. I'm going to put all these links in the description, obviously. Sunlight reflection has a potential to safeguard the livelihood of billions of people. It's a sign that the White House of the White House leadership that they're advancing the research that any future decisions can be rooted in science and not geopolitical brinkmanship. Gee, isn't everything geopolitical brinkmanship? Professor David Keith, Harvard professor, who first worked on the topic in 1989, when I was born, said it's being taken much more seriously now. He points to the formal statements of support for researching sunlight reflection from the Environmental Defense Fund, Union of Concerned Scientists, Natural Resource Defense Council, and new group Climate Overshoot Commission, an international group of scientists and lawmakers that's evaluating climate interventions in preparation for a world that warms beyond what the Paris Climate Accord recommends. To be clear, nobody is saying sunlight reflection modification is a solution to climate change. Reducing emissions remains the priority. Report floated the idea, this 1965 report, called Restoring the Quality of Our Environment, reported floating the idea of spreading particles around the ocean at a cost of $100 per square mile. A 1% change in reflectivity would cost $500 million per year, which does not seem excessive, the report said, considering the extraordinary economic and human importance of climate. The current estimate is it would cost $10 billion per year that could run a program that cools the Earth by 1 degree Celsius, said Edward A. Parson, a professor at environmental law at UCLA's law school. There's three kind of solar engineering: stratospheric aerosol injection, marine cloud brightening, and cirrus cloud thinning. Stratospheric aerosol would involve flying aircraft into the stratosphere between 10 and 30 miles skyward, spraying a fine mist that would hang in the air, reflecting some of the radiation back into space. The stratosphere is calm and things stay up there for a long time. The atmospheric life of stuff that's injected in the stratosphere is between 6 months and 2 years. It would immediately take off the hot extremes pretty much immediately. And it's not imperfect yet because we haven't got it right. It's imperfect because the imperfection is embedded in the way it works. The same reason that it's fast is the reasons that it's imperfect. There's no way to get around that. One option for aerosol is sulfur dioxide coming from volcanic eruptions. There's also the precedent in factories that burn fossil fuels, especially coal. Coal has some sulfur and oxidizes when burned, creating sulfur dioxide, i.e. aerosol masking effect. Go ahead and leave a comment below. Go ahead. Sulfur pollution that's coming out of smokestacks right now is masking between 1/3 and 1/2 of the heating signal from greenhouse gases humans have already emitted into space. There we go. In other words, we've been doing one form of sunlight reflection for decades already, but it's in an uncontrolled fashion. This isn't something totally new in Frankenstein. We're already doing it. We're doing it through mostly dirty, unplanned way you could possibly do it, and we don't understand what we're doing, Wansner told CNBC. Sulfur dioxide is not likely the best aerosol and by no means the only technique for this. Cloud brightening is a very promising technique, for example. Marine cloud brightening involves increasing the reflectivity of clouds that are relatively close to the surface of the ocean with techniques like spraying sea salt crystals into the air. Geez. The cloud thinning, the third category addressed in the 2021 report from the National Academics, involves thinning mid-level clouds between 3.7 and 8.1 miles high to allow heat to escape from Earth's surface. It is not technically a part of the solar geoengineering umbrella category because it does not involve reflecting sunlight, but instead involves increasing the release of thermal radiation. Known risks to people and the environment. There are significant risks. It will mess with the ozone chemistry in a way that might delay the recovery of the ozone layer. Yes, damaging the ozone is bad. Acid deposition is bad. Respiratory illness is bad. Absolutely. And spraying sulfur in the stratosphere would contribute in bad directions for all those effects. But you have to ask, in relative to what? How about a brimming global economy for endless growth so that we can get to net zero by 2050? Meanwhile, the world is getting hotter and there will be catastrophic impacts for people in the world. There's already too much carbon out there. And even if you stop all emissions today, the global temperature will be high and remain high for hundreds of years. So why scientists are saying maybe we need to do something else, not instead of, but maybe in addition to something else that is being done. The current action/non-action of countries collectively, we're committing millions of people to death. That's what we're doing. For sunlight reflection technology to become a tool in the climate change mitigation toolbox, awareness among the public and lawmakers has to grow steadily and slowly, according to Tyler Felgenhauer, a researcher at Duke University. If it's on the rise to the agenda, it'll be a kind of evolutionary development where more and more environmental groups are willing to state publicly they're for research. Research it now or caught off guard later. In my opinion, Keith of Harvard says, in my opinion, there's more than a 90% chance that within the next 20 years, some major nation wants to do this. The odds are 100% that some country pursues sunlight reflection, particularly in the wake of seeing millions of their citizens die from extreme weather. The world will not stand idly, and leaders will feel compelled to take action. Our only hope now is that doing research now in public, the world can collaboratively understand the upsides and best for any future great experiment. Nothing could go wrong. Last but not least, in a culmination of these other two articles, we have tipping points, changing the chemistry of our ozone and stratosphere, and then we have blueprints for World War III. Stop paying your debt, guys. Don't stress the small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff. Be smart. White House draws up blueprints for World War III. Less than 1 week after President, and this is from World Socialist website. I don't know. It's quoting some other information. Biden warned that U.S. conflict with Russia could trigger nuclear Armageddon. White House published a national security strategy pledging to win the global hegemony through military violence. The document pledged to expand the U.S. military, integrate economic life with war making. Gee, sounds like World War II all over again. To win the competition for the 21st century and what it called the Decisive decade. Embracing in all fundamentals the 2018 National Security Strategy published by the fascist would-be dictator Donald Trump, Biden's national security strategy affirms the United States is locked in an existential conflict with Russia and most of all China. We are now in the early years of decisive decade for America and the world. Like I said, guys, this is 1930 all over again. And 1940, we all know what happened. Okay, more like 1932. We are now in the early years of a decisive decade for America and the world. Biden's personal introduction to the document, the terms of geopolitical competition between the major powers will be set. This decade, the opening remarks echo Biden's declaration in March that the world is on the brink of a new world order and we've got to lead it. We need you to enlist. Biden's strategy, like Trump's 2018 strategy, is violently nationalistic, declaring that the United States acts not in the interest of humanity or its allies, but fundamentally to preserve its selfish interests. Our strategy is rooted in national interests, drilling for more oil, compounding interest on the consumer, screwing out the little man, poor education, lack of adequate food, healthy food, the national strategy to keep you dumb and enslaved. It's called totalitarianism. Our military power continues to grow, the document menaces, pledging to modernize and strengthen our military so it's equipped for the era of strategic competition. For this reason, the document threatens nations are seeing once again why it's never a good bet to bet against the United States of America. Nuclear deterrence remains a top priority for the nation. At war, Biden says in introduction, will be the source of national rejuvenation. The United States has a tradition of transforming foreign challenges into opportunities to spur rejuvenation at home. Its documents set forth the concept of integrated deterrence, which pledge long-term strategic competition requires the seamless integration of multiple elements of national power, diplomacy, information, economics, finance, intelligence, law enforcement, and military. Also, it declares we will leverage all elements of our national power to outcompete our strategic competitors. Guys, this is just kind of a rehash over and over. In the most chilling passage, the White House fact sheet of document declares that the Biden-Harris administration has broken down the dividing line between domestic and foreign policy. Echoing the infamous Total War Manifesto, only the singleness of the unity of state, armed forces, and the people can assure success in war. It's the continuing of Trump's fascist American First ideology. The president took some unusual positions, especially for Democrat. He took a dark view of the benefits of globalization, describing it in length how it has fueled pandemics and disinformation, contributed to supply chain shortages. We all felt this. We all know this. The document asserts we effectively compete with the People's Republic of China, which is the only competitor with both intent and increasingly the capacity to reshape international order. Rather, the U.S. struggle to win the 21st century is predicated on the fact that the post-world Cold Era is definitely over and competition is underway between major powers to shape what comes next. How do we rewind? How do we go back in a time machine and, I don't know, tell everyone to stop having babies, reorganize our entire energy infrastructure in the past century? Don't play around. We can't do that. No more energy can be invested into the past. Well, this was a doozy, guys. I woke up, felt like rehashing these 3 articles because they were all pretty important in their own individual way. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe. This is just educational content meant to inform and entertain. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.